I forgot someone in Star Trek. Strange New Worlds learns Spock's biggest secret. For a show that has spent so much time exploring the emotional and cultural duality of Spock, Star Trek Strange New Worlds has managed to give him more depth than almost any version before. The half-Vulcan, half-human science officer of the USS Enterprise is constantly navigating his identity, his feelings, and his loyalty to Starfleet. But in the midst of all the Vulcan drama, romantic tension, and existential crises, it's easy to forget something major. Someone on Strange New Worlds actually knows Spock's biggest secret. And that secret isn't just about his heritage or his relationship with Turing. It's the fact that Spock once became fully human, an experience that not only redefined how he saw himself, but also reshaped how his crewmates viewed him. This secret that shouldn't exist. In the episode Charades from Season 2, Spock undergoes a bizarre yet touching transformation after a shuttle accident. Thanks to an encounter with a curious group of aliens, his Vulcan DNA is accidentally fixed, meaning he becomes 100% human. For the first time in his life, Spock is free from the logical control and emotional suppression of his Vulcan side. He feels everything: anger, love, joy, confusion, hunger. It's a comedic episode on the surface, filled with awkward interactions, unrestrained emotions, and, of course, the classic meeting the in-laws chaos. But beneath the humor lies something profound. Spock, stripped of his Vulcan nature, experiences what it means to live as a purely emotional being. And more importantly, someone witnesses it all. Nurse Christine Chapel. She doesn't just see Spock's human side, she helps him live with it. Chapel coaches him through the overwhelming flood of emotions, teaches him to regulate them, and ultimately becomes his emotional anchor during one of the most vulnerable times of his life. Chapel, the keeper of Spock's humanity. What's wild is how easily fans and even the show itself move past this revelation in later episodes. But Chapel's knowledge is no small thing. She's not just aware that Spock briefly lost his Vulcan DNA. She's seen what it means for him to truly be human. That experience gives her a level of insight into Spock that no one else aboard the Enterprise has, not even Captain Pike. Chapel understands how deeply Spock feels under his controlled exterior. She's seen the passion and intensity that his Vulcan discipline normally hides. That kind of knowledge creates an intimacy that's almost impossible to undo. And it explains the complicated dynamic between them throughout Season 2. Their relationship is filled with longing, hesitation, and mutual respect, but also the shadow of that shared secret. For Chapel, it's not just about romance. It's about knowing the truth of who Spock could be if he ever stopped suppressing himself. Why it matters more than we realize. In classic Star Trek fashion, Spock's temporary humanity isn't just a plot gimmick. It's a metaphor for identity and belonging. And in Strange New Worlds, this metaphor becomes literal when someone else actually bears witness to it. By the time the Vulcans restore his DNA, Spock has had a taste of emotional freedom, and Chapel has seen him unfiltered. Their bond becomes something that transcends logic or rank. It's rooted in shared vulnerability. That's why her eventual departure in Season 2's finale hits so hard. When Chapel leaves for her fellowship with Dr. Corby, she's not just walking away from a love affair. She's walking away from the one person who knows Spock's entire truth. It's almost tragic how Strange New Worlds doesn't dwell on that as much as it could. The show subtly moves on, but the emotional residue lingers. When we see Spock later, trying to regain control, forcing himself back into a Vulcan mold, we know what's underneath that stoicism. Chapel knows it too. She saw the real Spock. The irony of a forgotten revelation. What makes this revelation even more poetic is how it echoes Spock's legacy in Star Trek, the original series. There, Spock spent decades serving beside Kirk and McCoy, constantly walking the line between logic and emotion. But even in that era, no one truly saw him as fully human. They respected his Vulcan heritage and teased his human impulses, yet they never saw what it would look like if those impulses completely took over. Strange New Worlds gave us that missing piece and handed it to Christine Chapel, a character often underused in the original series. Suddenly, she's not just the nurse pining for Spock. She's the one person who's seen him without the Vulcan mask. That elevates her importance in both his emotional arc and Star Trek canon as a whole. What it means for Spock's future. If Strange New Worlds continues to develop this thread in Season 3 and beyond, Spock's secret could have deeper repercussions. Chapel's knowledge of his humanity could influence her medical ethics, her empathy toward alien species, and even her interactions with future crewmates like Dr. McCoy. For Spock, The memory of charades might remain buried beneath his logic. But it's still there, a quiet reminder that his human side isn't something to fear or suppress. It's something to understand and integrate. That's the real beauty of his character arc. Every time he tries to reject his humanity, life or alien interference forces him to face it again. The